Hello, my friends, my friend. How are you doing today? Are you good? We are making our way through this morass of writings by Spinoza. Now, I did a first video and I was very encouraged because Spinoza said he wanted to speak in a manner that would be intelligible to the multitude. And now I finished the introduction by John Wilde. That was the first 59 pages. Now we're starting on page 1, right? It uses Roman numerals for the introduction. So page 1 was on the improvement of the understanding. We went up to page 6. So today I'm covering from page 7 to page 58. The first essay is called Improvement of Understanding, or more specifically, on the improvement of the understanding. And I got up to page 6 on that portion. So just so it's not too confusing, I want to keep the page numbers under control here. So in this essay, The Improvement of Understanding, the only thing I mentioned last time was that he said he was going to be intelligible. He starts talking about different ways that we can perceive things. And he talks about 4 different ways that you can perceive things. One is from hearing about it from somewhere else. He calls that hearsay. We use the word hearsay as something that's just like a rumor. But he uses it more in a scientific sense, that you're getting information from somebody else. He calls it hearsay. Perception arising from experience, and perception arising when one thing infers another. So that's the third one. And then the last one, he says perception arising when a thing is perceived solely through its essence or through the knowledge of its proximate cause. And this is the type of perception that Spinoza focuses on. The perception arising when a thing is perceived solely through its essence or through the knowledge of its proximate cause. And that is what he uses moving forward in his argument, which is unfortunate because it's I call it a type of a bootstrap argument, or a definitional argument. He goes on to use that. And here I can easily see why John Wilde said that he was influenced by Descartes, because Spinoza goes on and rambles on and on and on. Maybe it's because it's translated from Latin. I don't know. But he reaches a point on page 16 where he says, essentially, if anyone asks why I have not at the starting point set forth all the truths of nature in their due order, inasmuch as truth is self-evident. So Spinoza, we know where he's going. He's going to eventually try to prove the existence of God through a priori principles. And I know that he's going to be using this 4th definition of perception. He believes that he gains an understanding of something just by its essence, or he says that truth is self-evident. He talks about having a means of distinguishing a true idea from all other perceptions. Let's move on. Page 19, he says, when I know that I exist, I cannot hypothesize that I exist or do not exist, any more than I can hypothesize an elephant can go through the eye of a needle. Nor when I know the nature of God, can I hypothesize that he exists or does not exist. So he says, just by knowing the nature of something, it becomes self-evident whether it's true or not by its essence. This is essentially his argument, which is very disappointing to me. I was hoping for something better. He says, fiction cannot be concerned with eternal truths. So he dismisses, the atheists who say, well, I believe in the spaghetti monster. And Spinoza would say, fiction cannot be concerned with eternal truths. He dismisses anything that doesn't have these eternal attributes to it outright. But his argument is a definitional argument. I call it a bootstrap argument. There's a good section here on page 20 that flat earthers would like, or wouldn't like, I should say. He says, for instance, I know that the earth is round, but nothing prevents my telling people that it is a hemisphere, and that it is like a half apple carved in relief on a dish, or that the sun moves around the earth, and so on. So don't forget, this is written in the mid-1600s, and he says, well, I know for a fact the earth is round. I just thought I'd throw that out because I still see people that are insistent upon talking about a flat earth when people in the 1600s knew that the earth was round already. Let's move on. Spinoza goes on and on and on. Again, on page 26, ideas which are clear and distinct can never be false. See how he uses a definitional argument? He just says, if your idea is clear enough that you're getting the essence of a thing, then that thing must be true. There's no foundation to his argument. It's very eloquent, and it goes on and on and on and repeats itself. He says, the truth is self-evident by its intrinsic nature. And he says this is gained by reflective knowledge. So if you reflect on something and think about it long enough, you'll come to the same conclusion. Listen to what he says here. Spinoza says, thus, that which constitutes the reality of a true thought must be sought in the thought itself and deduced from the nature of the understanding. It's a bootstrap. It's like starting from zero and just going 0 to 100 with no basis. I'll repeat that. Thus, that which constitutes the reality of a true thought must be sought in the thought itself and deduced from the nature of the understanding. He's essentially saying truth must be self-evident. That's unfortunate. I'm very disappointed that he just says, well, truth has to be self-evident. For an idea is in itself nothing else than a certain sensation. He refers to people who don't believe that the earth is round or that the sun is larger than the earth. He calls them rustics. I thought that was a cute term that he uses for people that were uneducated at the time who were shocked to learn that the sun is larger than the earth. He called them rustics. We may therefore conclude that doubt always proceeds from want of due order in investigation. In other words, he says, if you think about something long enough, if you think about its eternal attributes and you use your intuitive understanding, you're going to come to the conclusion that a truth is a truth because it's true. It's not based on anything, right? A thing is more easily remembered in proportion to its singularity and in proportion to its intelligibility. He uses all these different terms to try and promote his argument, but he's really just talking in circles. Everything should be conceived either solely through its essence or through its proximate cause. Again, that was his fourth reason of being able to perceive something. He says you're able to perceive something from hearsay or from another cause or from one thing describing another thing. But the last one was that it's through its essence. So just its own nature that you're able to perceive that something is true. And of course, we're leading up to where he starts talking about the existence of God. So this is, let's just finish it up here, page 42. Properties of the understanding involves certainty. The understanding forms positive ideas before forming negative ideas. The more ideas express perfection, of any object, the more perfect are they themselves. False and fictitious ideas have nothing positive about them. So I call it a definitional argument. This original essay, it cuts off short because it says the rest of the treatise is wanting. I don't know if that's from the editor, John Wilde, but the essay just stops on page 44 and he doesn't continue with it. Now, the term wanting means it's lacking in substance or is failing somehow. So for whatever reason, the essay on the improvement of understanding just gets cut off short. But Spinoza just keeps going and going and going in a circular argument. He says something has to be true by its essence, just by its attributes, just by thinking about its essence makes that thing true. And we know today that this type of argument is circular and is unsubstantiated. It doesn't last anymore. I don't know why he wrote the way he did for this initial essay, but it's has no foundation to it whatsoever. I was really expecting a lot when I read the first few pages. I read the first 6 pages, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is exciting." Spinoza is going to, talk about how he believes in God and how he's going to come up with some theistic ideas. And so far, it's been a total and abject failure. So let's move on to the second essay, which starts on page 45, and it's called Spinoza's Short Treatise on God, Man, and His Well-Being. And this is an essay and it's divided into sections. So first part on God, chapter 1, that God exists. And again, he uses just a definitional argument if you want to describe it as something. He just says God exists by definition. He says, whatever we clearly and distinctly know to belong to the nature of a thing, we can also truly affirm of that thing. Now we can know clearly and distinctly that existence belongs to the nature of God. And so he goes on to describe this over and over again. Because existence is a characteristic of God, therefore God must exist. It's a circular argument. It's very disappointing, I must say. It's very disappointing. And he uses all these different terms, Latin terms, a posteriori, a priori, forma liter, as different types of formal things. And he goes on and on and on with all kinds of footnotes, detailed footnotes, that man has the idea of God. This is clear because he knows his attributes, which attributes cannot be derived from man himself because he is imperfect. He says because God has attributes of being perfect, those ideas couldn't come from man because man is imperfect. It's wordplay. He's trying to be a word magician here. As much as I would like to, side with Spinoza because he's pushing theism, his arguments have absolutely zero strength. He quotes Thomas Aquinas saying that God could not be proved a priori because he has no cause. I don't know why I disagree with Thomas Aquinas, but anyway. And then he goes on to chapter 2. Now that we have proved above that God is, it is time to show what he is. So he uses this first chapter, which is just 3 or 4 pages, to prove that God exists because his attributes are existence and his attributes are perfect. And because man is imperfect, he couldn't have got those ideas himself. So they had to come from God, therefore God exists. This is a circular argument. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. It's like trying to dig yourself out of a hole. Page 52, he says, God is all goodness and perfection. By definition, he says, right? If he cannot create what is self-contradictory, if God is omniscient, then he can know nothing more. But that God can know nothing more is incompatible with his perfection. Therefore, ... and he puts question mark. So he he almost is about to touch on some of atheist argument, right? Can God make a stone so big that he can't lift it type of argument, which are basically self-contradictory arguments. At least he does bring up that point that you cannot use an argument that is self-contradictory, right? God can create a rock and he can pick up that rock. So the statement itself is nonsensical when people try and disprove the existence of God by conflicting his different characteristics, right? We say, well, if God knows everything, then he can't know nothing more. And if he can't know nothing more, then he's not all powerful. That kind of argument, right? You know, he's all powerful and he can create the rock, and he can create the rock that he can't pick up. So it's self-contradictory statement. It's again, you can use wordplay or circular arguments to argue for or against something. You can use a circular argument to argue against the existence of God, and you can use a circular argument to argue for the existence of God. So I'm neither impressed by either argument. I've heard them all the time from the atheist perspective, that they use circular arguments to argue against the existence of God. But this is the first time that I've really seen a concerted effort by somebody to argue for the existence of God using a circular argument. And it's really, it's a little more painful than I maybe thought it might be, or I wasn't expecting it. I just wasn't expecting it. Another reason for the existence of God, he says on page 55, is because of the unity which we see everywhere in nature. Now, don't forget, this is before Darwin. And he says that it's impossible for one type of creature to exist that is the same as another type of creature. So he doesn't, obviously doesn't, is not familiar with Darwin's argument of natural selection and evolution and all that stuff. So let's go on. We're almost done here. We're almost done for today's video. Sorry, I know it's a little bit boring, but I'll try and make the footnotes in the description. And I think that's about as far as I got with my notes. Yeah, so that was all the notes I took on it. Now I've reached page 58, and I'm going to keep on moving forward, and I'm going to try and get through this as quick as I can because, I mean, you know, it's a little tedious. So far, there is nothing here that is worthwhile historically to emphasize or to relate to our thoughts and feelings of today, right? We don't argue that way. We don't make these long expositional statements or oratories of definitional circular discussions about something which end up having absolutely no impact on the listener. You can read it and you can basically easily see through what he's trying to say, and it fails, unfortunately. So I don't know what he was thinking at the time. Maybe he was not well when he wrote that particular essay and he just had to fill up space or something. I don't know what the motivation of the writer was, but so far it's not looking good. That's all for today. I don't know what else to talk to you about. I'm thankful that these videos are getting posted, and I hope that they can be a blessing to you somehow. I don't know how. I wish I had something more exciting to talk about. It feels like I'm putting in this time for a purpose, but I don't understand the purpose yet. I feel like it's something that I have to do, that I feel compelled to do, and I know that it's taking up a significant portion of my time, but the good news is that it's time spent away from anger or hatred or maliciousness or nattering discussions amongst people in social media arenas where we could so easily get on each other's nerves. At least I'm separating myself from that, and hopefully that this is going to turn out to be something productive for me in the future that'll be a benefit to you. I don't know how yet, but I'm definitely going to keep pushing in that direction. So again, thank you for watching. God bless you. I love you very much, and I know that God loves you very much. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get out, get some fresh air, spend time with the people you love, stay happy, stay focused, stay positive. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.